Namaste, guys. ChristianRLong, Life Enhancement Consulting, giving you a big and beautiful shout out on this Friday evening here in Denver, Colorado. It's evening, right? 4:40 p.m. Is that evening? Does that count? Look, I have my door open. My door open to the inner world, to my dream world. Woo! Dean, Namaste. Adriana, Namaste. So, I have a question for you. Would you let somebody drown? Yes or no? If you saw somebody struggling, gasping for breath, spitting water out of their mouth, flailing their arms, flailing their legs, and a shark maybe coming their way from 100 feet, would you let that person drown? Or would you stick your arm in the water, the lake, the ocean, the pond, right? And pull them into your boat, pull them to the shore, pull them to a raft, pull them to some kind of, I may not, but I'm going to say something, right? Pulling them from where they are, drowning, to safety. Would you do that? Now, most every single person, I would hope so, most likely listening to this live stream, would be absolutely. I would totally save the life of somebody that was drowning, right? Now, taking that same line of reasoning and that same logic and applying it to the world of energy healing, the world of meditation and practical spirituality. And I've been doing this work professionally for 15 plus years, and I've been a practitioner of meditation for 20 years. And a question I've heard over and over and over and over again on the spiritual path when I attend a workshop with other healers, and there's a main presenter or teacher, I hear is, should I heal that person? There's a friend, there's a family member, and they go, should I heal that person? Am I going against that person's free will by healing them? Right? Am I going against that person's free will healing them? And it's interesting. It's an interesting viewpoint. Lorena, namaste. Because you wouldn't ask somebody who's drowning, hey, do you want me to save your life? You would just reach in the water and pull the person out. You have no fear of them saying, hey, what are you doing saving me from drowning? I was trying to drown myself. I was hoping to drown myself, right? So isn't that interesting that we think of it from a physical saving the person's life perspective, but when it comes to alleviating them of maybe a physical ailment, maybe an emotional ailment, maybe a psychological ailment, maybe even a spiritual ailment, that is the time that we start asking questions about, is it right for me to do that? Am I taking over that person's free will, right? Here's the thing, and there's many different levels and angles to look at this from. Look, if the person is supposed to be saved, right, they'll be saved through the channels that are available to that person at that time. Meaning, you have a friend, right? You have a friend who is suffering from depression. Nobody else in that person's life knows that they're suffering from depression, right? But they just happen to have you as a friend who maybe knows pranic healing, maybe knows energy healing, maybe is a therapist, right? Maybe has some coaching skills or coaching abilities, right? So the great teachers, the great ones, the higher soul of that person has organized a situation for that person to get help, guidance, assistance, or healing with their problem. So my theory, and this is just a theory, don't know this for a fact, right? My theory is that when somebody asks that question, do I have to get the permission from that person, or am I taking over that person's karma, or am I interjecting myself into that person's soul development? Do I have the permission to do that? I think a lot of it comes from laziness. That's just my experience and just my opinion. I think it comes from laziness of why we don't help somebody that we can help, right? We see a friend that's depressed, we can help them. We see a friend that's going through marriage problems, we can help them. We see a friend that's going through financial problems, we can help them. But helping, right, implies what? Not implies. Helping is taking our eyes off of ourselves and putting it on to the other person. So it's a function of us normalizing our solar plexus chakra, which is the center of me, myself, and I, normalizing the solar plexus chakra, and then opening the heart chakra to be of service, to be of help, to be of assistance, to be of guidance to another person. And that's not easy for a lot of people because our society has conditioned us to be very, very self-centered. And it's actually interesting when you think about it from a technological standpoint with apps, our phones, social media, movies, everything is becoming hyper customized. We don't even need to watch, Jillian, I'm a namaste, we don't even need to watch commercials anymore, right? So back in the day, we had to kind of like tolerate commercials, we had to tolerate breaks, we had to wait for our favorite show to be on, we had to be fully present because we couldn't rewind it, we couldn't fast forward it through the boring parts. So we had to like, Kim, I'm a namaste, we had to go through a certain process, right? Now, because everything is hyper customized, it's like we don't have to do any of those things. So our worldview has become more self-centered than ever before. Me, myself, and I. So in this land of hyper customization and lots of materialism and lots of focusing on the self, it's more challenging for us to open our viewpoint. How can we be of service to other people? How can we alleviate the pain, the sorrow, and suffering of other people? I'll give you a really interesting story. This was maybe about a little over 20 years ago. And I had moved from Massachusetts down to Jacksonville, Florida. And for those of you who have ever watched the TV series Cops, right, where they basically tag along with real cops, tackling real criminals, right? A lot of the episodes from Cops was actually filmed not only in Jacksonville, Florida, but the part of Jacksonville that it was filmed in, I lived in for a period of time. It's called Springfield, and it's a subdivision of Jacksonville. Jacksonville, at the time, was the largest city in the world by landmass. It was 60 miles by 60 miles. That's huge. So you could drive 60 miles an hour for an entire hour to cover the entire city of Jacksonville. And then, if I'm not mistaken, 2 cities in China merged, and then they became the largest city in the world land-wise, by distance. So anyways, I was working at a restaurant in downtown Jacksonville, and it's called the Jacksonville Landing. It's basically a bunch of restaurants that are right on the waterway. Really nice. There's a beautiful bridge. It's kind of posh relative to Jacksonville, Florida, right? There's other parts of Jacksonville that are super awesome, like Jack's Beach, one of my favorite spots. So I was living, or I should say, terrified of staying at this place in Springfield, the division of Springfield in Jacksonville, Florida. And I was staying with a deacon of a Baptist church who basically wanted to make sure that I was a Christian before he would allow me to stay with him. And I was like, if it'll get me a place to stay for a couple days so I can get my act together, that would be phenomenal. So that was an opportunity of him providing what? Service. It was about him taking his attention off of his own needs, wants, and desires and being of service because he's a deacon for a Baptist church, and they talk about service. They talk about loving your fellow man. They talk about accepting people. Now, if I said I wasn't a Christian, maybe his response to me, Yolis, I'm in namaste, maybe his response to me would have been different. It's possible. I don't know, right? So I was working at a restaurant at the Jacksonville Landing, and then I was walking 4 miles or something like that. This is long before Uber and Lyft and all that, and I had no money. I just started working at this place. I basically took a bus ticket to go down to Florida, from Massachusetts to Florida. It was like a 38 or 39 hour bus ride, not the most pleasant bus ride of my life. And I was basically looking to spend time with somebody. I'm not going to say who that person is. And it completely blew up and fell apart. I was like, are you kidding me? Is this how it's going to happen? So I immediately had to find a place to live. I immediately had to find a source of income. So I got a job at a restaurant. And then I ended up, through one way or another, finding this person, connecting with this person, and staying with them for about a month. Now, here's the thing. For those of you who do not know, Springfield, the part of Jacksonville, Florida, the majority of it is black, almost all black, right? A lot of homicides. It's a very, very dangerous area. It has nothing to do with black or white. It's just a dangerous area. A lot of poverty, a lot of crime. So I'm one of the few white guys, maybe the only white guy within a 4-mile radius, right, of walking from this house to the Jacksonville landing to go to my job. So I had this nice $400 leather jacket. A $400 leather jacket, 20 years ago, that's like a $1,000 leather jacket. That's a big deal. So as I'm walking to work in my leather jacket, I'm getting harassed by gang members. I'm getting solicited for sex by black prostitutes, some of them men, some of them women, some of them pretending to be women, right? It was an interesting scenario 20 years ago in my life. So, and that black jacket, that black leather jacket was somehow, some way stolen. And I don't even remember because that time in my life was so foggy. So I ended up working at this place, the restaurant, for about a month. I was able to save up over $2,000, and I was able to shortly find the right place in San Marco, which is a subdivision of Jacksonville, right? So you have Springfield, Jacksonville, very dangerous, very scary place. Then you have San Marco, super, super nice, super posh, super expensive, and only like maybe 3 or 4 miles away. Weird, right? So I remember a friend of mine who I worked with, she was a bartender at the restaurant. She goes, where do you live? And I said, I live on this part of town. And she was more familiar with the area than I was at the time. And she goes, you live there? That's like one of the most dangerous places in all of Florida to live. And you live there? And I go, well, I'm just staying there temporarily. And I had to I would walk 4 miles home in the middle of the night with like $200 or $300 of cash on me, right? Going to a place, sleeping on a floor in this guy's house, hearing gunshots probably every 3 days in that area. It wasn't a safe area. It just wasn't. It wasn't safe for him. Never mind me. It wasn't safe for anybody that lived there. So one night she goes, hey, instead of you walking home, let me give you a ride. Super sweet, right? So she ends up giving me a ride. As she's dropping me off, there's gunshots like 2 houses away from where she's dropping me off, the house that I'm staying at. And she goes, never mind, get in the car, you're coming home with me. And I ended up staying with her for 10 days. She took care of, made sure I had plenty of toiletry items, fresh towels, fresh bedding, and she took care of me. And she didn't have to do that. But she could have said, well, not my problem, not my concern. You're on your own. Do your own thing. It's your fault that you put yourself into this situation, blah, 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 right? But no, she had a big, open, loving heart, and she wanted to be of service to me and take care of me. And then it was interesting because right around the same time that her dad was coming into town from another state and I had to find a place to stay, I had found the place in San Marco, Jacksonville, to live. And I was there for, I think, a little over a year. And it was a great location. Very interesting scenario, but it was a great, great, great location. I thoroughly enjoyed living in that part of Jacksonville. And so what is my point with everything that we started from? The premise was, would you help somebody who is drowning? Would you save somebody who is drowning? Of course you would. Any decent human being would do that. Now, if you have a certain skill set in meditation, in healing, in counseling, in therapy, in coaching, don't you also think you can apply the same understanding and logic of, hey, my friend is suffering, I'm going to do healing on them. or my husband or my wife is suffering, I'm going to do healing on them. Oh, but they're not open. They're not open to healing. They're not open to this stuff, to energy healing or to meditation or to woo-woo or to whatever. They're not open to it. My viewpoint is that that's a limiting belief and that's a form of laziness. Because look, you are aware of that person's suffering so you can provide help to them. Not namaste, good to have you back on. You can provide help to them, right? And alleviate their suffering. And if they are not karmically entitled, James, namaste, if they are not karmically entitled to be healed by you or by anybody, the healing will not work. Likewise, if somebody is drowning, listen to me, guys. If somebody is drowning and they are karmically entitled to die because of drowning, they're going to swallow just the right amount of water. You're going to save them at just the wrong time. You're going to place them on, flat on the bed, flat on the whatever, and try to revive them. Do the best that you can to help them, to heal them, to save them, and they won't make it. Jacob, namaste. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So we do what we can to help another person, and whether they receive it or not, whether they benefit from it or not, or whether they move their lives forward or not, is not up to us. What is up to us is us doing the right thing. Saving the person's life is doing the right thing. Healing the person is doing the right thing. Coaching the person is doing the right thing. Providing resources is to do the right thing. So, Adriana says, how do we make people receptive if they don't know they are getting healing? So it's all about karmic entitlement in the end. Okay. So how many of you want to know the two laws that supersede the law of karma? Right? Because karma simply means action. We have good action and not so good action. I have a call in 30 minutes, so I want to pay attention. So karma is simply action. So when something good happens to you, that's a manifestation of good karma. When something not so good happens to you, that's a manifestation of bad karma. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you plant corn, you get corn. You plant tomatoes, you get tomatoes. You plant love, you get love. You plant hatred, you get hatred. You plant prosperity, you get prosperity, right? Very, very simple. You steal from other people, you will be stolen from, right? So karmic entitlement is very, very, very important, right? If you've only planted corn, the likelihood of you ever reaping mangoes is going to be very, very unlikely. But the two laws that supersede or are above, dominant to the law of karma, are the law of mercy and the law of forgiveness. The law of mercy and the law of forgiveness. So what does that mean? Meaning, if you help somebody else, if you are merciful with somebody else who is in a bad situation, and their bad situation may be negatively affecting you, but if you are merciful with them, mercy will be bestowed upon you. If you forgive another person who has injured you, who has caused you pain, suffering, and sorrow, either mentally, emotionally, financially, sexually, whatever, if you forgive that person, then guess what? You will be forgiven. So there's a mantra that we covered a few days ago called Om Mani Padme Hum, which is the mantra of compassion and mercy. By chanting the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum on a regular basis, you alleviate the pain, the sorrow, and suffering of all sentient beings within a certain radius of your aura. The bigger your aura, the bigger your energy, the more beings you alleviate their suffering. So think about this. As you're helping other people, you are now karmically entitled to receive help. Manny, namaste. If you're taking advantage of other people, you'll be taken advantage of. If you do not help other people, you will not be karmically entitled to being helped, right? So that's what I was saying before, that you have the question of like, well, I don't know if my healing is going to be effective. I don't know if my coaching is going to be effective. I don't know if I'm going to help this person achieve the result that they're trying to achieve. Well, if you're going into the interaction that you are ready, willing, and able to be an instrument of goodwill and the will to do good for that person, it is up to that person's karma of whether they're going to be healed a little bit, completely, or not at all. You do not decide that. Their karma decides that. But again, as you're practicing mercy, as you're practicing compassion, as you're practicing forgiveness towards another person, mercy, compassion, and forgiveness will be bestowed upon you. Super powerful teaching. And there are many levels of understanding to that teaching, right? So whenever you have that coming into your awareness of like, I don't know if I should help that person or not. As soon as you think, I don't know if I should help that person or not, you're not seeing it clearly. To give you an example, have you ever, and this requires a lot of awareness. I'm not saying we all have this awareness, but have you ever passed a homeless person on the street and you had an opportunity to give $1, to give $5, whatever, right? And you had the money, right? It was in your wallet or in your purse, and the person asked for $1 or $5 or whatever, 10 cents, 25 cents, and you didn't give them any money. Have you had that happen before? Or has that happened before? That you had money, somebody asked for money, you didn't give them anything, right? How did you feel afterwards? How did you feel over the next hour? Did you notice anything happen in your life? Think about it. Again, this requires awareness. I know of people who will see a homeless person, and that homeless person will ask for $1, they'll ask for a burger, they'll ask for something, some material resource. And the other person will look at them with complete and utter disgust and disdain as though they are below human, subhuman, right? Those people live miserable lives emotionally. I know a few people like that. They live miserable lives emotionally. Why? They keep getting opportunities to practice mercy, to practice compassion, to practice forgiveness, so then they can generate mercy, compassion, and forgiveness for themselves. But instead of practicing those things, right, they attack, they belittle, they put down, they berate. So they cause injury, and guess what? Injury is now caused back to them. They're causing emotional pain, so they live a life of emotional pain, right? It's really profound. It's really, really profound. Whenever there's an opportunity to give to somebody in need and you have the resources, absolutely do it. Whether it's 10 cents, $1, $5, $20, and if you have greater means, give more, right? Help out more, provide more value. So I hope this makes sense to you guys. Rebecca, namaste. You're late to the party. Hopefully you can watch the replay and get some value out of it. But does that make sense that it's not your position to determine whether it's a good thing or not a good thing to help the person? That's not your role. Your role is you have a skill, you have an ability, you have a capacity to help a person in need, right? How they receive it is entirely up to them. Karmically, intellectually, emotionally, physically, financially, however they receive it is entirely up to them. There's something in the United States called the Good Samaritan Law. And actually, I would recommend you look this up in the Bible as well. The Good Samaritan Law, basically, if somebody is trying to help another human being in a crisis and that person gets more injured, the person who is helping is not responsible. They're not held legally liable. Why? Because that person is raising their hand to say, I want to be a person of goodwill and the will to do good. So I pull over to the side of the road to help the person change the tire, and I end up damaging their car more. Whatever. I pull over to the side of the road, and instead of stopping, I go a little bit too far and I bang the person's car, and the car runs over the person, right? But by the Good Samaritan law, you're showing up as a person that says, I want to be of goodwill. I want to help another person. I'm not perfect, right? I might not be a trained doctor or EMT or nurse, right? But I want to do whatever I can to help another person, right? So that's the mindset that you want to have in your life. Is how can I be of service? I know unequivocally that what I do with pranic healing and Arhatic yoga can transform most anybody's life. That person has stress, we can heal it. That person has an addiction, we can heal it. That person has anger issues, we can heal it. Now, does that mean it's going to be healed overnight? No. Does that mean that there are things that that person is going to need to do to maintain their healing and to accelerate their healing? Yes. But does it have a positive effect? Absolutely. And guess what? If it doesn't have any effect at all, which is very, very, very rare, but if it doesn't have any effect at all, I was still raising my hand to say, I want to be an instrument of goodwill and the will to do good. I want to help another person. But to say, I don't have permission from that person's soul, I'm interfering with that person's free will, in my opinion, this is my opinion, it's laziness. You just don't want to help the person. And that's not that that's okay, but at least it's a higher level of awareness and realization than not. Because one, you're lying to yourself and lying to the other person. You're practicing self-delusion, right? You're like, well, I don't want to interfere with their free will. When in fact, you're actually just being lazy and you don't want to do it, right? So have you noticed that when you lie, you have to tell another lie, then another lie to keep it going? That's what's really fascinating about karma. What did we talk about earlier? You plant corn, you get corn. You plant tomatoes, you get tomatoes. You plant mango seeds, you get mango trees, right? So when you lie, when you distort the perception of other people, what happens? Your perception is distorted. So when you lie to others, you're lying to yourself many, many times over. And when you lie to yourself, you're lying to yourself many, many, many times over. Not good. It would be better to say, I don't want to heal the person because my body's tired, or I don't want to heal the person because I'm lazy right now. That would be more honest and more accurate, right? It's a higher level of truth than saying, well, I don't want to interfere with the person's free will, right? Lying to yourself, self-delusion, has to be worked on regularly for most anybody. Not just you, not just me, most anybody on this planet. So I hope you guys got value out of today's talk. We're not going to do 90 minutes like we did yesterday because I got to jump on a phone call really quick. But do you have any other questions, comments, concerns, clarifications about what we covered today? Thanks for the thumbs up. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you. For those of you who are looking for healing, because that's what we're always promoting on these channels and these streams and these advertisements, it's always healing, healing, healing. And I don't care who you are, what you do, what belief system you have, what your childhood background and upbringing was, healing is super, super important. I'm going to watch the full video. Yeah, Jacob. I think you'll enjoy it. Jacob has been a long-time newsletter reader, and I like his feedback. Spent time with him for Thanksgiving. He's a beautiful man and beautiful family. Best of luck to him. So for those of you who need healing, right, go to ChristianRLong.com. ChristianRLong.com. It's my name. Super easy. People are like, what's the R stand for? Roy. It's my father's first name. ChristianRLong.com. Sign up for a healing session. We do it over Skype, FaceTime, or Zoom. And then our goal is to transform your life, to take you from where you are, right, to where you want to be. Grandmaster Chogo Koksui says it's not about, how to put this, it's not about where you are or where you're starting. It's about where you want to go. That's what's important. So many of us focus on why am I stuck versus where do I want to go? what do I have to remove and who do I have to become to get there, right? That's the thing that you want to focus on. Does that make sense? So anyways, guys, thank you very, very much for sharing your time, your energy, your love, your support. May the good karma come back to you and your family many, many, many times. I love sharing these energies with you guys because my ninja power is throat, communication, materialization. So if I didn't have you guys as an audience, I probably would just be here in my apartment talking to myself, wandering around. So I'm glad to have an audience. It makes it way more fulfilling. All right, guys, this is Christian Long, Life Enhancement Consultant, wishing you a beautiful day, a beautiful weekend, and a beautiful life. Atma, namaste. Bye-bye.